A few days ago, when we last recorded a college football podcast, I did a segment about how I felt Florida was closing the gap on Georgia. And when I clipped it and posted it on TikTok, it blew up and I got a lot of backlash for that take. You have folks saying, oh, with Georgia having Kirby Smart, we're never going to lose to Florida, as if Kirby Smart makes Georgia invincible and they're incapable of ever losing to Florida. Florida this year is as good as they've ever been with Billy Napier as the head coach. Nobody was gassing up Florida around this time last year. So the notion that Florida's being overhyped like always is bullshit and false. Last year around this time, we were all hedging bets on the over-under when Billy Napier was going to get fired. We felt Florida wasn't that good to survive the gauntlet of a schedule that they had, and they overachieved relative to what the expectations were. You had DJ Lagway, who was a freshman All-American. When he took over at quarterback, the season turned around for Florida, and some of the younger players on this squad stepped up in a major way. And it's not insane to think that Florida is closer to beating Georgia this year than what they've been these last couple of years, when you have a young, promising quarterback in DJ Lagway who has shown us more promise in his small sample size than what we've seen out of Gunnar Stockton. You have a more proven rushing attack. Florida's run game was in the middle of the pack last year. Georgia's rushing attack was their biggest Achilles heel on offense last year out of their wide receivers having butterfingers. The offensive line that Florida has this year has 2 projected top 50 picks. And their defensive line, their pass rush, returns more proven production than what Georgia's does. Georgia's replacing 2 pass rushers that got drafted in the NFL and another one that got picked up as a UDFA. What Florida brings into this season is Tyreak Sapp and Caleb Banks at defensive tackle, who are projected to be first-round picks in the 2026 draft. With Florida having more proven production on the O-line, the defensive line, having the advantage at quarterback, and a more proven ground game, there is a fair reason to believe that for once in Billy Napier's tenure at Florida, this team actually has a shot at taking down Kirby and the Dogs. Let's not forget, when these two teams faced off last year, Georgia was supposed to run this team out of the stadium. And it was a tightly contested game into the final 6 minutes. This game last year was way closer than what the final score indicated. And with DJ Lagway more than likely taking a big step of improvement, and this team being more talented this year with what they have coming back, what they've got from the transfer portal, the guys that have had another year of development, it is not insanity to think that Florida is closing the gap on Georgia. The recruiting is also trending up as well. Having Kirby Smart doesn't make you unbeatable. You lost to Ole Miss last year, the same team that Georgia beat with DJ Lagway. I understand the backlash from a fandom standpoint, but if you're a Georgia fan and you take your fan cap off and you look at what Florida has coming in this year in terms of proven production, it's not crazy to believe that this is Florida's best shot to beat you. You have concerns when it comes to your pass rush. There's a reason why you have to go in the transfer portal recently and get that transfer from Army. With what Florida has in terms of proven production, they have that advantage over you on the defensive line and when it comes to getting after the quarterback. Kirby Smart actually was quoted not too long ago saying that the edge rushers that we have this year are not up to the standard that we've had in years past. And Florida is labeled as a team that is a borderline playoff squad this year. They could go 9-3 and be in the CFP. And Georgia, I'm not going to say they're trending down because last year was a down year for them. Kirby Smart did an incredible job. That was his best ever coaching job. It was reminiscent to the job Nick Saban did coaching Alabama his final season before he retired. Despite all of the injuries they had and the limitations that they had, they still were able to win the conference and make it to the playoffs. But it's not as if Georgia is as dominant now as what they've been early on during Kirby Smart's tenure. When you went up against Dan Mullen, he did a poor job of recruiting and developing talent. Billy Napier has recruited really well. He's developed really well. And it's the main reason why he was given a fourth season. The majority of Florida's young players that they have all this NIL money tied into perform well. Well, we had a true freshman at running back last year. That's why our ground game wasn't good. So did Florida. Jaden Ball was one of the best true freshman running backs in America. Florida had an All-American center and Jake Slaughter, first team at that. There are certain areas that Florida is better than right now than what Georgia is. Yes, we know that Georgia doesn't rebuild, they reload. But with the issues they had last year, there's no guarantee that those issues are going to be corrected. Georgia fans were calling for Mike Bobo to get fired for a good reason. You were mad at your receivers for having all of these drops. You don't know what you have in Gunnar Stockton. Florida knows what they have in DJ Lagway. You can look at the stats all you want to and try to downplay how good he was and the impact that he had on his team. But let me remind you that DJ Lagway played nowhere near 100%. When he got carted off against Texas, I thought that was the end of his season. I was shocked to see him return and finish out the rest of the year. I thought that that was a season-ending injury. Anytime you see a player getting carted off, you never expect them to come back. So I give DJ Lagway a little bit of grace when it comes to the stats. Gunnar Stockton, he helped you win the SEC championship, but you didn't ask him to do much. He wasn't really that impressive against Notre Dame. Just because you have Kirby Smart and he, without a question, is the best coach in college football, doesn't mean you're incapable of taking the L to Florida. It doesn't mean that Florida is not closing in on you in terms of where you're at from a talent standpoint and where they're at from a talent standpoint. Folks love to throw out returning production, but when it favors their rival, though, they just want to scratch it off and act like it doesn't matter. This is the most experienced and the most talented team that Billy Napier has had at Florida. You are not a lunatic. You don't know ball just because you feel like this is Florida's best shot to take down the Dogs. I'm not saying that Florida is going to beat Georgia. What I am saying is that this is their best shot to do so. Georgia is not what they used to be anymore. It's not like they're blowing out everybody. They're running roughshod through the SEC. I never thought that Lane Kiffin would beat Kirby Smart. I never thought that Florida would be as good under Billy Napier in year 4 as what they are right now. If you would have told me that Billy Napier was going to save his job last year, I wouldn't have believed you. But he did. It shows that he's a pretty good coach. And this program is trending upwards under him. He resurrected Cormani McClain's career. This was somebody that was casted off, written off. Nobody thought that he would be able to live up to the 5-star billing he had coming out of high school. And now he's expected to have a breakout season for the Gators. If you would have told me that it would have took Georgia 9 overtime periods to take down Georgia Tech, I wouldn't have saw that coming before the season. You don't know what Florida is capable of this season. Just like you didn't know what Georgia Tech was capable of. The playing field still isn't level. Georgia still has a talent advantage over Florida, but it's not as wide this year as what it's been in years past. And that's why I say Florida is closing the gap on the Bulldogs and why this is their best shot to beat Kirby Smart and company this year. They are getting all of this hype for a reason. Nobody had them in the top 25 last year. Nobody expected them to be a playoff team. I just think that fans who buy into their fandom so much that they think their rivals never have a shot at beating them, You know, like, it's one thing to be a fan. It's another thing to just, you know, just think that you're better than everybody else and you can't be beat. We saw Georgia be beat last year. We nearly saw them lose to Georgia Tech. If you could come close to losing to Georgia Tech, you damn sure could lose to Florida this year.